Azoi. We are in the middle of chapter 14, and with Hashem's help, we'll complete chapter 14 today. You understand, once we get to the instructional section of Tanya, the learning gets a lot simpler. The thought that you have to do for the rest of the week perhaps gets a little more complex, a little more complicated. What do you do with what you learn now that the Alter Rebbe is giving instructions on how a person should behave themselves when they are just an average human being, knowing that the Alter Rebbe has laid out for us that Torah expects us to be optimal average human beings. Still, for the most part, the learning will be less complex. We will need to rely less on sources, and we'll have to just use our seichel. We'll have to use our intellect and our intuition to take what the Alter Rebbe is instructing us and to apply it into real, actionable instruction. Last week, the Alter Rebbe made it clear, every average human being has the capacity in every moment to do the right thing, to say the right thing, to think the right thing. And let's be very practical. To do the right thing means in every opportunity, in every instance, in every moment you have within your power to avoid doing something that's against the Torah. Does that mean you'll never do something that is socially wrong? No, that's not what it means. Does it mean you'll never do something unintentionally wrong? No, that's not what it means. It means that you'll always avoid doing something that you are aware that you know is against the Torah, that you know is against the values of Hashem and Judaism. Same thing with words. Just sometimes the words that we choose to say, complimentary and kind as they are perceived by the person listening as offensive. And that can't be helped. It doesn't mean that when you are fearing, when you revere Hashem and you behave in line with this awareness that God is watching you every moment, it doesn't mean you'll never offend anybody. Because the way we choose our words is based on our experience, and the way they will perceive what we said is based on their experience. And sometimes the lines of communication get crossed. And so what do you do then? Of course, you apologize, because that's what Torah expects. And therefore, there is tshuva. There is the mitzvah to rebuke your friend. And it doesn't mean rebuke. It means take a critical look. Critical, not negative, but critical as careful. Take a good look at your friend. And sometimes you have to say to your friend, that thing you told me on Thursday, now I see you here in Shul on Shabbos, that thing you told me on Thursday, I'm mulling it over. It hurt me, but I know you didn't intend to hurt me. So explain it to me. Because I don't want to have any grudge against you, even implicit, even subconscious. Because a Jew is not allowed, a God-fearing person is not allowed to have a grudge in his heart against a fellow human being. Not allowed. And that's why there's an obligation to really look into any possible offense. Good. And same thing with thoughts. It doesn't mean you'll always think the right thing, but it means that you're armed and ready to recover from your automatic thoughts that are not the right thing. For example, if a person is experiencing a hardship in his life, the thoughts of that person might automatically go to the darkest place. That's human nature. Most humans are pessimistic by nature, and we call it realistic. Why do we call it realistic? Because the scientists say you are pessimistic in order to protect yourself from the worst possible situation. In every instance, your mind starts imagining what is the very worst thing that could happen to me right now. And this, that's a self-defense mechanism. But Torah says, trust in Hashem. Don't expect the worst to happen. Be aware, don't be silly, but expect the best to happen. This is Hashem's world, a beautiful world. And when something difficult happens, expect and accept that it is Hashem's plan and it is the best for you. So instinctively we'll think for a moment, will hear the voice of the Yetzer Hara, because we are average human beings, and the Yetzer Hara will say, "Ugh, this is terrible." To quote an old Jewish sage, the Yetzer Hara will come to you and say, "Life stinks." And right away, the Beinoni, who is working on himself to live a life that is completely centered around God consciousness, the way Hashem wants us to live, and right away will change their attitude to take on a positive attitude, and to trust that everything that happens in your life has at its core, at its foundation, something that's beneficial to you, your family, your community, and the whole world. So again, in action, always think before you act. We really do have the capacity never to do something against halacha, against the Torah. In words, we have the capacity to recover in terms of interpersonal relationships. We have the capacity to never intend harm, and when we do accidentally cause harm because people are different and our minds work differently, we are armed and ready to make amends quickly and fully. And when it comes to what we think, we are also armed and ready to recover from the natural pessimism that's innate to the human being, and to build up our emunah muscles, to build up our bitachon muscles, and be ready to accept and fly through any challenge with Hashem's help, through hard work and practice. And that's the life of the Beinoni. Does it sound beautiful? Does it sound like something we want? Of course it does. What a life. Kidding? Yesterday, somebody posted a meme that says 4th of July canceled due to lack of independence, signed women. And my response is, can you guess? You're spending too much time on politics. It's clear. It's a clear Mishnah. Ein lecha ben chayrin elo misha esek b'Torah. Real independence is not going to be found, is not going to be granted by any government. Real independence is when you've devoted your life to Hashem, and it doesn't matter what the world is doing around you. The world will give you independence when it suits them, and the world will take away independence when it doesn't suit them. And the same is for anybody that ever has any power over anyone. That's also clear in the Mishnah. Don't buddy up, don't get chummy with government, because they'll only be nice to you when they need you. As soon as they don't need you anymore, they throw you out. To expect independence as a gift from government is foolhardy. It ain't going to happen. It's just another kind of servitude. That's why the Mishnah says, Ein lecha ben chayrin ela misha oisek b'Torah. You don't have true independence, true freedom for any human being, except when you are busy with Torah study. You're busy with your inner life. That's where you can have true independence. That's where you can have real freedom. Only the neshama can never be imprisoned. Only the soul and the spirit of a person can never be chained. Where's your perspective? Where are you going to focus? This is the life of the mind of the human being. And that Beinoni is armed and ready to counter the Yetzer Hara's pessimism, sadness, anxiety, fear, and come back with confidence, calmness, tranquility, happiness in the service of Hashem. However, there is another version of Judaism that's not available to every human being. What is this other version of Judaism? The other version of Judaism is one wherein good and evil are, hold on. But there's another version of Judaism, and this version of Judaism is not available to everybody. This version of Judaism is one wherein you're not only ready to fend off the voice of the Yetzer Hara, there is no voice of the Yetzer Hara. The battle doesn't take place inside of you, the battle takes place around you, surrounding you, in the environment in which you find yourself. What is the battle? The battle is between good and evil. The Beinoni, the average human being, will battle with him or herself to maintain pristine behavior, to maintain a good record in terms of their speech, and to always bounce back from negative thoughts. But that's an internal struggle. There is a Judaism that doesn't entail this internal struggle. Rather, when these certain kinds of Jews, certain kinds of human beings see something evil, they are naturally repulsed by it, and they have no interest in it. There's no struggle. There was a struggle. These people built themselves up to this. It doesn't come for free in most cases. The Alter Rebbe described in the earlier chapters of Tanya how these people purify themselves and purify themselves and purify themselves through contemplating the greatness of Hashem, learning to love Hashem, and so on and so forth, until they reach the stage where things that are antithetical to Hashem and to the relationship that you have with Hashem repulses these people. So here you have two versions of Judaism. You have the version of Judaism that is all action-based. What am I doing? What am I saying? What am I consciously thinking? And then you have the Judaism that is inside your heart. And the Judaism that takes place inside your heart is something that the average human being has no access to. And the average human being has no reason to bother with it. Let's read now in the Tanya the words. It's three words from the end of the line. Masha ein kain. Masha ein kain. What we have described earlier about this Judaism that takes place in the world of action. And we said every single human being has the capacity to be perfect, optimal in their thought, speech, and action, in the manner that we described just a moment ago. That is not the case with this other version of Judaism, the kind that takes place in your heart. When it comes to those things that are really take place inside your heart, dahainu, meaning that a person should work on himself till his preferences are so honed, sharply honed, till anything that is antithetical to God and godliness is disgusting in his eyes, is loathsome in his eyes, v'sonui b'tachlis sina, and is hated with utmost hatred. Oya, afilu shaloi b'tachlis sina, or even to work up such an instinct, such an instinctive disgust for things that are antithetical to holiness, that you should hate them, even if it's not utter and absolute hatred. What are these two categories? Absolute hatred and not absolute hatred? Because we described two kinds of tzaddik. We described a perfect tzaddik whose hatred for evil is absolute, and we described imperfect tzaddikim whose hatred for evil is not absolute, but they do hate evil, and it's instinctive. This is not possible, that the average human being should be able to develop it, and it should be honest, earnest, and authentic, unless you are able to generate in your heart such a powerful, mighty love for Hashem, what we described earlier as a love of delights. What is this love of delights? Where you love Hashem so much that all your pleasure in life comes from Him. All your pleasure in life comes from doing things that Hashem appreciates. Hashem. Now, let's be honest. Such an experience, to love Hashem to the point where you delight in that relationship, that is me'ein olam haba. That's a taste of the world to come. That is an otherworldly experience. What is olam haba? How is it described? Olam haba is tzaddikim sit in a circle with crowns on their heads, and they delight in the presence of the Shekhinah, of Hashem's presence. Delight. In this world, for the most part, Human beings have an appreciation, a yearning for closeness, but emotional delight and pleasure in such an overwhelming manner that it pushes out every other potential source of pleasure. That's me'ein olam haba. That's an otherworldly experience. We are capable of it in short sprints. We're capable of it for moments at a time. But to consistently live on that level, that's not something that all human beings are able to do. V'al zeh amru razal, regarding this love, the love of delights, where you love Hashem so much that nothing other than godliness gives you any pleasure in your life. To love Hashem so much, Chazal said about that, you will get to have a foretaste of your reward in the world to come, even while you're still alive in this world. Ve'ein kol adam zeiche lozeh. That's something that not every person merits in this world. Ki zehu ke'ein kibul schar. This is already the beginning of receiving your reward. And the real reward is meant to come to you in the world to come. Which world to come? Both. Either the world of souls, where the soul receives its reward, or in the world, the physical world, after the resurrection of the dead, when the body and soul receive their reward together. This is the reward. Back up one step, to experience such an overwhelming delight in Hashem that you couldn't even be interested in anything else. That is a taste of the world to come, and it's like you are receiving a portion of your reward that is set aside for you in those worlds. That's a gift from Hashem. That's a gift from Hashem that most people are not going to receive. So if you're following in the original Tanya, we are on page Chof, at the top of the page, 4 lines down. And as it is written in the pasuk, Avodas matono etein es kihunaschem. I give to you as a gift, a new kind of service to Hashem, the kind of service that you could not have generated by your own force, by your own power, by your own discipline. It's a changed personality, where you went from average human being to some kind of spectacular, above average human being. But that's a gift from Hashem. This last Shabbos, the Chassidus that we learned before davening is 2 Maimorim, 2 discourses from the Alter Rebbe in his Sefer called Likutei Torah, where it talks on the Parsha. And the 2 Maimorim described the mode of service to Hashem represented by the Kohanim, the priests that served in the Holy Temple, the Beis HaMikdash, versus the Leviim. The Leviim, they also served in the Beis HaMikdash, but they did a different kind of service. Theirs was the inspirational more than tactical. Their job was teaching Torah, and specifically their job was instrumental. They were the orchestra that accompanied all the service with song, with music, with musical instruments, with singing, a choir, beautiful harmony. What are these services? What does each one represent? The Levi represents the average human being, and the Kohen represents the above average human being. How so? The Levi, if we were to assign a place to each of these two groups, the Kohen and the Levi, on the tree of life, Chochma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, you say, well, the Levi would be on the left side. The left side is the side of severity, Gvura, and the Kohen would be on the right side, the side of Chesed. What's the Levi's job? What is the job of discipline in terms of how we serve Hashem? Discipline means we need to work on ourselves, to generate and lift ourselves up, refine ourselves, earn another step, another layer, another level, another degree of closeness to Hashem. How do we do that? Well, that's also on the left side. We have to use our minds. That's our most powerful tool. We have to use our intellect, study the greatness of Hashem, study what is important in the world, study what is loathsome in the world, and keep doing it until we generate a love for Hashem and a disdain for things that are antithetical to Hashem. That's represented by the Levi. That's why the Levi plays music, because it requires inspiration. It requires encouragement. That's why the Levi plays so many different instruments, because each instrument represents the different personalities of human beings. Some human beings, you have a room full of human beings all meditating on the same subject, and each one will come away with a slightly different emotional response. Some will study the greatness of Hashem and come away with a tremendous joy and yearning for Hashem. Some will study the greatness of Hashem and come away with a tremendous bitterness and sadness over their distance from Hashem. Different personalities, you'll result with different emotions. And that's why you have the different instruments. The Alter Rebbe points out one in particular, the flute. The flute symbolizes the feelings of joy and pleasure, joy and gladness that would result from contemplating the greatness of Hashem. There are others that are more associated with bitterness, the struggle, the sadness. That's the Levi's job, to lift people up from their present spiritual station and bring them closer to Hashem. And in our personal lives, that is the role that meditation or contemplation should play. And just as the Levi was a regular presence in the Beis HaMikdash, it wasn't a special service that happened once in a while. The Levi was there every day, playing his instruments. So this contemplation, contemplating the greatness of Hashem, studying what is beautiful and what is loathsome in truth, that's effort we have to put in every single day. Every single day. Till we should lift ourselves up to the point where we are experiencing a visceral response to Hashem's hand in our lives, to the fact that we are created for His purpose, the fact that we have an opportunity to serve the Creator of heaven and earth. Then there is the Kohen. What is the Kohen? The Kohen is on the side of Chesed. What is the side of Chesed? And how is it represented in this week's Torah portion, where that spawned the whole discussion? In this week's Torah report, means last week's Torah portion, because we were learning it on Shabbos. It's Parshas Koirach, and there is a rebellion among the Kohanim, among the tribe of Levi, because one family among the tribe of Levi was assigned the role of Kohen, that's Aaron and his sons, and other families in the tribe of Levi said, what about us? Why should we lose out? Why should we be left out? And they, it may have started as a righteous, there's many ways to look at it. And you would find that the argument starts in righteous indignation, truly righteous. But once the fighting starts, it goes downhill quickly, and it just became an all-out rebellion without any positive foundation at all. Good. So they made a test. Moshe Rabbeinu, with Hashem's blessing and Hashem's instruction, orchestrated several tests to show that the family that had been assigned the role of Kohen was by God's choice, not by nepotism. Yeah. What were some of the tests? Everyone should prepare a ketoras fire pan and offer it together. Only a Kohen is allowed to do that. And we would see whoever was punished by Hashem for offering an unauthorized ketoras fire pan, then you would know that they're not the chosen one, and that choice is made by Hashem. Another test was that Moshe Rabbeinu said, if these people will die of old age, then you have a true complaint against me. But if some supernatural event will occur, and through some supernatural event, these people who are rebelling against the appointed Kohen are removed from the world, then you'll know that that person was appointed by Hashem's choice and not by nepotism. A third test was each tribe should, the leader of each household of the 12 tribes should prepare a stick, a dead stick from an almond tree. Those sticks would be placed in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Mishkan, and whichever stick sprouts almonds, that will be the sign that that person is the chosen one and that the choice is from Hashem, not through nepotism. And the question that the Alter Rebbe asks is, why almonds? Why not a fig? Why not a rock? Maybe all the family should put a rock in the Mishkan, or whichever rock starts running water. That's a miracle that already exists in the desert. Why almonds? So the classical answer is almonds grow quickly. Almonds grow quickly. In fact, the Hebrew name for almonds is shkedim. Shaked means to move quickly. So, because it was a test, in order to minimize the miracle of something sprouting overnight, almonds, which grow so quickly anyways, are the best candidate. But the Alter Rebbe says, let's look deeper. The Kohen represents chesed, and chesed means blessings come from on high very quickly, even without all that work that the Leviim represent. Isn't that clever? It's a little rude to call the Rebbe clever. The Levi represents hard work. Raise yourself towards Hashem. Earn your new station spiritually. The Kohen represents a flow of blessing from Hashem, unearned, unrestrained. Flows straight from God to the person without any hindrance, without any interference from pesky things like judgment, worthiness. That's the Kohen. So what's the reward if a person is on the side of chesed? He's under the flow of this open and swiftly flowing the stream of blessing from Hashem. What will he experience? He'll experience overwhelming love and delight just from being in the presence of Hashem, similar to what the souls experience in the world to come. The greatest gift a human being can experience is, truly the greatest gift that a human being can experience is to feel Hashem's presence in your life and to experience and to respond to that presence with pleasure. That Hashem's presence in your life should bring pleasure to your life. That is called, in the Alter Rebbe's words, Me'ein Olam Haba. It's a taste of the world to come. It's otherworldly. Not every person is going to earn this. Not every person is going to receive such a gift. Most people will be left to our own devices. And being left to our own devices means we can only use the tools we've been blessed with. What are the tools that we've been blessed with? As average human beings, we have the capacity to maintain pristine behavior in thought, speech, and action. That's all. What happens in our hearts, how much we delight in the presence of Hashem, how much we scorn evil, that's not for most people to deal with. For most people, that's too much. Two weeks ago was Parshas Shlach, where we read the story of Moshe Rabbeinu sending scouts into the Holy Land. That's not the only time the Jewish people sent scouts into the Holy Land. There's at least two other instances where one time Moshe Rabbeinu sent scouts and one time Yehoshua sent scouts. Yehoshua is Moshe Rabbeinu's successor. In the case of Yehoshua, Yehoshua was commanded by Hashem to send those scouts. It wasn't an option. Whereas here, Moshe Rabbeinu was told by God, if you want, send scouts. I'm not going to tell you that you should, but if you want to, you may. The Alter Rebbe, again in Likutei Torah, asks the obvious question: how come it was left to Moshe's opinion? How come Hashem didn't command it here like Hashem commanded Yehoshua there? The answer, of course, is what role did these scouts play versus the scouts that Yehoshua sent? If we can understand that, and then we can understand the parallel, how they line up with our personal experience in our personal service of Hashem, it will become very clear why it had to be up to Moshe Rabbeinu's decision to send these scouts, while Yehoshua could be commanded to send those scouts. And the answer is very beautiful. Moshe Rabbeinu sent scouts to scour the entire land, search every corner, go all the way in, to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west, bring back the produce, report on the people. In our lives, that would be the same as get involved in your deepest and darkest, most instinctive tendencies and clean them and purify them. But that's not for everybody. That's only for tzaddikim. To purify your heart, to purify the instincts that lie behind your conscious mind, that's not for most people. If Moshe Rabbeinu wants to get involved in that kind of business, he is welcome to, but Hashem will not command it. First of all, there's tremendous risk in that. If you start digging inside your psyche, you could break it apart. Could cause more damage than good. And the Torah recognizes this. And Hasidus recognizes this. That's not our job. That's not the job of most people, to dig around in the hidden places of your psyche. Instead, if Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest tzaddik ever, wants to get involved in sending a very carefully selected group of scouts, or in the microcosm, if a big tzaddik wants to dig into the deepest recesses of his subconscious mind to purify himself more and more, okay, a great tzaddik has that purview. A great tzaddik has that option. Average human beings, Hashem will not command an average human being to dig around behind his psyche. Yehoshua sent scouts to the city of Yericho. Yericho was known as the entry point to the land. If they could conquer Yericho, they'd basically have free range across the land of Canaan. What is the entry point to the human experience? Is behavior. Behavior. What you do, what you say, what you think. And to that level, Hashem does command that we send scouts. Hashem commands and demands that we study regularly how we are faring in terms of our behavior, thought, speech, and action. And that's why Yeshua was commanded. Send the scouts. I'm not leaving it up to you. This is a commandment and an obligation for every Jew. This is what the Alter Rebbe is telling us here. There are these two lives. There are these two potential strains of Judaism. One of them is tactical and one of them is strategic. Most Jews are not strategic. One of them is like, I don't know what you want to call it. Most Jewish people, the average Jewish person, is capable of living the optimal life tactically. And not only are they, in most cases, not capable of the strategic, the Torah doesn't want them to even mess around in that field. V'lochin, and therefore, Omar Iyov, the book of Iyov states, to Hashem, Barasa tzadikim chulu, you Hashem, you created human beings who are capable of being tzadikim. You created human beings who are capable of this other stream of Judaism, this other strain of Judaism, the deep psychological one. But it's not for most people. It says in the Zohar, sheyesh b'neshamas Yisrael kama mine madrigos uvechinois, that among the souls of the Jewish people there are many types and there are many levels. There are Hasidim. There are Hasidim means pious ones. Pious ones in the language of Zohar means the perfect tzaddik. Remember? There are Giborim Hamisagabirim al Yitziram. There are the mighty ones, to quote the Mishnah, who is a mighty person, who is a champion, one who conquers his Yetzer Hara, one who conquers his evil inclination. And there are Morei Torah, masters of Torah study, Neviim, Chulu, Tzadikim, Chulu, Ayin Sham. There are all these kinds of levels in Neshamis, and what the Alter Rebbe is quoting here, what we're bringing from the Zohar, what the Zohar is describing here, is the natural spiritual talent with which different Jewish people are born. Previously, as we were learning about the Tzaddik and the Beinoni, we kept saying, if you meditate and you contemplate, you can achieve great spiritual heights according to your intellectual ability, according to your soul level. What is your soul level? The soul level is your spiritual skill, your spiritual ability. How talented are you spiritually? Are you born with a capacity to rise high? Are you born with a capacity to rise only to a certain degree? Now we understand why the soul is made to swear, be a tzaddik and do not be a rasha. A tzaddik means live your life pristinely, but on that psychological level of life where you despise evil. But not every person is capable of that. Says the Alter Rebbe asks this question. Let's remind ourselves, before the soul is born, it is made to swear, be a tzaddik, do not be a rasha. Brings the Alter Rebbe a new question. This question was not asked in the first chapter. It seems that we have a problem here. Once they made him swear that he should be a tzaddik, why do they have to make him swear that he won't be wicked? Ella, rather, the answer now that we understand that there are these two separate strains of Judaism, and one everybody is expected to observe, and the other select people are given the option and the power. to do so. Now that we know this, now we can understand the double language of the oath. That's because not every human being merits to be a tzaddik. And it's not really up to us whether we will be given the ability to be a tzaddik or not. At least we don't have control of that so much. To lift ourselves to the point where we love Hashem until He is the source of all our pleasures and we have no other interests. And therefore, commensurate to that, we despise evil to the degree that we're not even interested in it at all. We don't have so much control over that. Therefore, they administer that second oath. And if you find that you're not capable of being a tzaddik, at least don't be a rasha. There, in that strain of Judaism, don't be a rasha means don't sin in your action, don't sin in your words, and don't be a pessimist. Think the way that Hashem wants you to think. Everybody has the ability to do that. To overpower, to remain in control, even when your heart desires a variety of permitted and forbidden things, God forbid. To overpower your inclinations, so that you shouldn't sin and you shouldn't fail in terms of behavior throughout your life. Every person has the capacity to achieve this. And that is in both areas of life, including, obviously, the things that Torah says don't do, but also including the things that Torah says that we should do. Every person has the capacity to drive themselves to do the right thing and to not do the wrong thing. And of course, when we say to do good things, we are especially referring to Torah study, because there is nothing like Torah study. We're left with another question, though. Since we know that not every human being will be capable of being a tzaddik, why administer an oath, knowing that you can't keep it? Seems unfair, seems unjust, seems dishonest. I cannot be a tzaddik, and it's not my fault. But you made me swear that I would. Why would the heavenly court do that? And the answer is, says the Alter Rebbe, although it's true that Hashem does not ask of the Jewish people, the average Jewish people, to poke around in their subconscious minds and try to clean themselves of any foreign interests, although the Torah doesn't require that of us and the Torah doesn't ask that of us, still there is a degree of trying that the Torah does require from us. What part of the tzaddik's life, what part of the tzaddik's lifestyle does Hashem want us to attempt? The Rebbe very much insisted, we're talking about the Rebbe in our generation, very much insisted that everything the Alter Rebbe describes in Tanya is available to any human being. There's nothing in this sefer that's not applicable. There's nothing in this whole volume that you could say about it that, well, since I am only average, there's nothing in the whole sefer about which you can say, well, since I'm only average, this doesn't apply to me. All of it applies to all of us. So here we are describing the inner life of a tzaddik, and the question is, which part of the tzaddik's life is relevant to me? It's important to know what I should not reach for. Okay, that's good. I know that I should not reach into my subconscious and try to sort things out on the deepest psychological levels. That I got, sure. But is there anything from the tzaddik's life that I should try? Says the Alter Rebbe as follows. Now we are on page Chaf, And we're beginning from line, from the new paragraph. In the new paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines down. 10 lines down. Achaf al pikein. Still, although this principle that we have described here is true, even the average human being, even the average Jew, does need to set aside time to contemplate the greatness of Hashem the way that a tzaddik prepares himself for his great level. And a person needs to set aside time to contemplate what things in the world are loathsome and what things in the world are valuable. It brings to mind the story of, I believe, it was the Rebbe Rashab who was the child and the Rebbe Maharash was the father. If I'm mistaken, I apologize. Who asked, why do we have 2 eyes, but why do we have 1 mouth, 1 nose, but 2 eyes? It's asymmetrical. You should have 1 mouth, 1 nose, 1 eye. And his father told him the right eye, his father basically told him depth perception. 2 eyes, when you combine the 2 pictures and you combine them on an angle, there you get depth perception. But he was a child, and the Rebbe took the opportunity to teach it to him in a manner that would also improve his avodas Hashem. So his father told him, with your right eye, you should look at a fellow Jew, because your right eye is stronger. And with your left eye, the weaker eye, you should look at candies and cookies. Depth perception. Values perception, yeah? What's more valuable? What has greater depth? And he says, the Rebbe Rashab, if the Rebbe Rashab was the child in that story, the Rebbe Rashab testified about himself, since then I couldn't eat candies and cookies. And I loved every Jew. I saw so much depth in them. Okay, so that's a Rebbe and a Rebbe, but that story was told to us also. And the fact that that story was told to us means we're supposed to live this way, and we can expect this from our children. We have to set aside time to study the true value of things so that our minds are primed to respond to the different things that we will encounter throughout the day properly according to their true value. And the Rebbe gives us some quotes from Chazal, from the sages, how they describe how you meditate on the true value of something. Ba'atzas Chazal, the Chachamim gave us an example. Of course, I've said this principle many, many times, and I'll say it here again so that nobody should get upset and you should understand what is being said here. The authors of the Mishnah, the authors of the Talmud, the authors of most of the rabbinic literature, they are writing to their primary audience, which is Jewish men. And therefore, there's not a lot of discussion about the behavior of non-Jews. And there's also not a lot of direct discussion about proper behavior for women. But the principles apply in both directions. The Chazal say to a man, you see, you are given the instinct by Hashem to be attracted to women. You are given the gift by Hashem to see women as attractive, as beautiful, and to be drawn to them. But if that's not your woman, then the attraction is gonna lead you to do the wrong thing, and we're trying to avoid doing the wrong thing. So the Chazal give us an eitzah. Think a little deeper. Look into the depths a little. Isha, what is a woman after all? And for women, they ask themselves the same question. What is a man after all? Chemes is a barrel, mileyat soya chulu, full of what? Once you go beneath the skin, what's beneath the skin? Blood, guts, excrement. Think a little deeper. Think a little deeper. What is this thing that you're so drawn to that's distracting you from the important things in your life? Disgusting, gross things. Spend a little time thinking about that, and you'll be primed to overcome the attraction that Hashem gave us, and it's an important gift. If the two genders were not attracted to each other, we'd be in big trouble. The Chachamim tried that one time. We discussed this earlier. It's not good. So we have this blessing from Hashem that there's attraction between the two genders, but the Chachamim say you've got to control it. You have to maintain control over that attraction so that you're using it, you're putting it to good use only in the right circumstances. What should you do with that same attraction when the circumstances don't call for it? Contemplate a little deeper. Think a little deeper. What is a fellow human being after all, if not a pile of real gross stuff? How does that help? It helps to calm the excitement. Naturally, we're getting excited. Say, wait a minute. What's the excitement? I'm going to eat a donut. Yeah, says the Alter Rebbe further. V'chein kol tanug elam hazeh, hachacham royeh hanoiled mehem. All the delightful things of this world, a wise person will see what will come of them in the end. Oh, I see a 10-ounce steak, really prepared, really, really well. Oh boy. Oh boy. Says the Chacham, think about this for a minute. In 40 minutes, where will that steak be? What will that steak be in 40 minutes? Gross, disgusting stuff. Stuff that you don't even want to be in the same room with it. So cool the excitement. It's excrement at the end of the day. That's enough. Okay, that's enough of that. All the pleasures of the world, in the end, they're going to be disintegrated, they're going to be downgraded, degraded, and it's going to become worms and maggots at the end, and therefore cool the excitement. On the other hand, how do we train ourselves to love Hashem and to love our fellow creations and our fellow Jews? What's the opposite? To train ourselves to delight and to rejoice about Hashem by contemplating the infinite greatness of Hashem according to our mental capacity. Even though we know, even though each of us knows that we are average, that we will not reach the level of ahava b'tainugim, to achieve, to earn a taste of our world to come while we still live in this world. Rather, we will experience it in a passing manner. Nevertheless, we are obligated to do what we can to prime our minds for the experience of delighting in holiness and despising unholiness. We have to do what we have to do. In order to discharge the obligation that we were sworn to before we were born, when we were told, be a tzaddik. And then the question remains, will we transform into a tzaddik? That's Hashem's business. And we will let Hashem deal with that. And there's another thing. Let's say Hashem chooses not to impart a special spirit of holiness into our souls so that we could become tzaddikim. Let's say Hashem chooses that we will live out the rest of our lives as average human beings and we won't be anything above average, and that we're going to struggle on until our final days, until the days when Mashiach will come. There's still an advantage of this training where you spend some time thinking about the physical pleasures that distract you, that draw your attention, and you just think a little further, put a little depth perception on it and see what will be in the end of the day, what will the donut be? At the end of the day, what will the 10-ounce steak be? And so on and so forth, as we described. And to spend some time learning, training ourselves to delight and to rejoice in Hashem. If we do it often enough, and we do it intensely enough, consistently enough, shehahergel al kol davar shilton v'nasa teva shemi. Hergel, when it becomes common behavior, how do you translate hergel? I did it yesterday, and I did it today, and I'm going to do it tomorrow, and I'll do it the next day. According to Shulchan Aruch, 90 days. I'm sorry, according to science, 90 days. And according to Shulchan Aruch, 90 experiences. That was fascinating when we discovered it. Our time for the lesson is officially over, so if you have to go, I won't be offended, but we have a little bit more to say. Yes, habit. Hergel nasa teva. Habit becomes your nature. In Shulchan Aruch, in the laws of Sfiras HaOmer, or no, in Shulchan Aruch, in the laws of praying for dew or praying for rain, right? When Sukkot comes, we're supposed to pray for rain. And when Pesach comes, we're supposed to pray for dew. How do you know? Let's say you prayed, you finished davening, and you're not sure if you said the right thing there, if you prayed for the rain or if you prayed for the dew, you're not sure. The answer is, if you have done it 90 times, that means for 30 days, 3 times a day, you can be confident that you have changed your habit. You can be confident that you have changed your nature. And then in the last 5 years, I read a report from scientists have discovered that habit building takes 90 days. So in Shulchan Aruch, it's 90. Shulchan Aruch is written, Torah is from centuries ago. Shulchan Aruch says 90 experiences, right? 30 days, 3 times a day. If we study the greatness of Hashem for an extended period of time, and we train ourselves into the habit of delighting over holy things and despising or disdaining unholy things, it will become our habit. It will become our habit. My father's mother, Olav Shalom, Rabbi Shalom Gordon from New Jersey, his instinct in every scenario is to do the holy thing. And there are so many like him. A man stopped him. He stopped a man on the street and said, "Excuse me, sir, did you put on tefillin today?" And the man, having studied a little Torah in his youth, knowing a little bit about Judaism, came back with a smart rebuttal. He says, "Rabbi, it's already the afternoon. You don't put on tefillin in the afternoon except on Tisha B'Av." So Zaydeh said, every day that a Jew doesn't put on tefillin is Tisha B'Av. Because that's how he felt. If a Jew didn't put on tefillin, viscerally, physically, he felt saddened over something that was unholy. Not because he was a tzaddik, but because that's how he trained himself. He made a habit out of holiness. When a person trains himself to loathe unholiness, that hatred, that loathing will be authentic to whatever degree the person can achieve. And the Alter Rebbe told us in the beginning of this chapter that in his opinion, meaning the Alter Rebbe's personal opinion, for an average human being, even to have a habitual hatred and loathing towards something unholy is, for the average human being, honest and authentic. And when he trains himself to rejoice and delight in the greatness of Hashem, because he's contemplated the greatness of Hashem, then he will inspire a blessing from on high. Remember the blessing of the Kohen. The Kohen is chesed. The Kohen is love. If he trains himself to rejoice and delight in Hashem, then Hashem may respond to him with more joy and with more love. And maybe, just maybe, he will be blessed with a spirit from on high, and he will be granted the spirit of some tzaddik, that will be joined to his soul so that he can serve Hashem with true joy. Unlikely, but maybe. It's up to Hashem. We have to do our part. Whether we will be blessed with the spirit of tzaddik later, even if we were not born with the spiritual capacity to be a tzaddik. This, again, this is all up to Hashem. We have to do our part. Again, rejoicing with Hashem, rejoicing and delighting in Hashem is something that is really reserved for tzaddikim, and we are not expected to dig into that area. We are simply expected to train ourselves to rejoice over holy things and to disdain things that are antithetical to holiness. This is our task. And those are also tactical things. Those are tactical things. Those are not psychological things. Which life are we meant to live? The tactically Jewish life, thought, speech, and action. Which part of the tzaddik's life are we supposed to adopt? Also, the tactical part. Contemplating the greatness of Hashem till you love it. Contemplating the loathsomeness of physical pleasures till you despise it. That's the part that we borrow from the tzaddik's repertoire. If Hashem will bless you, and it's unlikely, but we have to do our part. If Hashem will bless you with the spirit of a tzaddik, then you will really be able, in the fullest manner, to fulfill your oath, be a tzaddik. But in the meantime, hey Beinani, be a tzaddik, meaning, hey Beinani, develop good spiritual habits. Develop the habit of rejoicing over holiness. Develop the habit of overlooking, if not despising, unholiness. That's chapter 14. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful week.